Welcome back to the DreamHack November, and after a disappointing performance on Inferno, Apeks decided not to go down without a fight. And so fight they did, getting down and dirty on Mirage. And Blair, I know you're a little bit disappointed by some of the individuals on Apeks before our second map, but this time round, Nasty did it for you, didn't he?
Yeah, he was doing a nasty to AGF as well. And apart from him, you look at Grisarn, you look at Marcelicious, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but all three of them stepped up. They were out dueling, out aiming, out playing the side of AGF, which is good to know because the last time they beat them on this very map was Jacob dropping 33 kills, ably supported by Dennis as well. So it's like a nice little anime arc going on over here. But depending on which anime you watch, I don't know whether the end is going to be, them finally pulling off the reverse sweep. I don't know if that's going to happen yet.
I was hoping we were going to see some epic flashy plays from Christo on that map as well. And in the end, it all came down to, as Tom and Vince call him now, Marcelicious. May I suggest you change your name because I want to get that printed on a t-shirt. But let's talk about CT size, because while Apeks were like, yeah, you know what, we're going to take the space. We're not going to move, or at least let you take an inch here when it came down to AGF. They just seemed to sit back, relax, and unfortunately not win any fights, Vu.
Yeah, AGF, they weren't really fighting too much in middle. They were kind of giving it up. You saw them gamble stacking a few times, tripling up on A 3 or 4 times in the half. And then when it came down to it, giving up middle cost them a few times with plays straight up connector, straight up cat. Grisarn with the entries coming in clutch. And, there was even round 14, you had the entry went very poorly, but Jacob got himself into window. He got the rotate, he took down the rotation, and then they just went right back to B and took the round away on a round that, AGF should have been able to win. They just didn't have the right holds on CT side. They didn't have the right rotations, and Apeks really just styled on them to some extent.
Well, we're going to be going to Overpass next, and this is a map that AGF have played quite a bit recently. They don't really have too hot a win rate, and I'm wondering, Blair, maybe that's down to them being, again, too passive on the CT side.
I think it's different. If you're going to play passive on the CT side and Overpass, you could just kind of get stomped by any half-decent team, right? And Apeks, at least we saw anything similar to what we saw from them on the T side and Mirage, it's going to be really rough for AGF. But I have to agree with Vu, like you mentioned earlier. Overpass, it's a pure 50-50. I honestly don't know which way this one's going to go. I did still side with AGF. I like the system they showed on Inferno, and I feel like Inferno and Overpass are like spiritual brothers, so to speak, map-wise. It's kind of a weird analogy I'm going with here, but I feel like AGF would still have the slight little lead.
And Vu, final thoughts from you?
Still gonna stick with Apeks. I think the connector play is gonna bring it home, and the individual prowess is really gonna show up on a map like Overpass. It's just so massive.
All right, well, let's head to a break, and when we come back, Vince and Tom are gonna be getting delicious on Overpass.
While our final map of the series looms ahead of us, two very, very different maps. One where we saw the side of AGF looking very, very good in the first, like almost dominating when it came to the way that they played. We go into the second and they were almost like a fly on the wall that eventually got killed by Vu. So either way, it's just going to be one of those situations where I don't know where this is going at this point, because if it's one of those aggressive sort of styles we see from Apeks again, which Overpass very much can be, they could be in some real trouble on the Danish side.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of the main reasons why Overpass continues to be my favorite map. Not just the cast, but play everything else, because I think it's the map that most affords both teams the opportunity to play aggressively and battle for some of those key choke points on the map. You're looking at things like Connector, you're looking at Long, you're looking at short control over B. These are all aspects of the map that are integral to taking map control and making it yours. And I think this is going to be a very interesting map stylistically for these two teams. As you just said, we've already seen aggression on both sides when it comes to both CT and T sides, going for these quick wraparounds. Let's see how this pays off. Apeks will be starting on the CT side and going for that fairly default 1-4 formation. Best spawn peeks middle, gets info, falls back and calls for his teammates.
And the man looking for that information is going to be Jacob. The timing couldn't be worse. He's completely missed them all walking forward, unless he saw a pixel and that was enough, which, hey, you never know. Maybe that was the case, but slowly falling back, no rotation to be had, and the T's maybe just playing off that timing. As you mentioned, like it's the classic play. So if you can dodge that one player peeking, that could be a problem. And now Jacob probably going to be screaming down the microphone. Okay, yeah, I might have missed the mark a little bit here, guys. I'm under quite a bit of pressure. And although he takes one with him, the site is almost definitely lost. The only man rotating in time is going to be Nasty. And they go back.
I think they realized how fast that rotation is likely to come in, and Marcelios actually has a great position. This is fantastic as long as he can stay alive, because it forces them to focus down short pipe, and this just nullifies a couple more pairs of eyes going through onto the site, and they will be carved out easily in the end from Apeks. And it was a really shaky start, as you said. Jacob at least got one. If he dies without any loss of life on the T side, they almost guaranteed just rush the site. They probably win the round off the back of it. So Jacob even getting one kill is impressive. And then Marcelios going into that aggressive position outside of Monster allows them to stack more players on short, watching for the push. Very well done by Apeks. Great read of the situation and also to adapt on the fly.
Well, looking like a very aggressive investment here. Marcelios just sprays them all down. Groose alongside him, the SMGs make him bank, and this is not an eco. This is everything invested for AGF. So not only are they going to give a financial bonus, or not, Christo, that's a fairly easy kill to take. Of course, there's not any weaponry for them to actually retrieve, so it's not like this round has got any easier, but they can at least look to make things costly. The one thing that does worry me, and I think it definitely comes in with a lot of these, I want to call them more tactically based teams. I felt like even if you look back to the pistol, I think AGF just overthought things a little bit. Like they get the pick. At A site's normally a lot easier to get an afterplant situation once a man drops. Instead, they risk the rotation to B, and no matter how quick you are, if the B players realize, they'll get there before you. So I don't know. I'm hoping that won't be a case here, because I think Apeks are likely to be a lot more straightforward in their actions, almost clinical in the decisions they make, whereas AGF are trying to be the more tactical team, and I think that could come back to bite them.
There is definitely a case of overthinking. In terms of this round, though, there's not many options. It just has to be aim on point. TMB, who has been the best performing player on both teams over the duration of the first two maps. Now on a 1-on-4, looking to try and do some damage economically. Another kill would have been a pretty solid outcome, all things considered. But Apeks do hold on to 3. Coming into this map, he had 44 kills. Nearest player on either team was Busan with 36. And his rating of 1.34 with just under 100 ADR. So it goes to show that TMB has been the linchpin of AGF. If you can shut him down, that's a big amount of prowess that goes with him.
Yeah, another one of the younger players we're seeing within this AGF team. That's him and Christo, both 18 years of age. Very aggressive round, especially facing off against an eco. It's quite bold of Apeks to take those fights. The real advantage they have is the range of the weaponry. Instead, they get up close, and, well, I almost feel like that's a statement of just like, yeah, we're going to fight you no matter what sort of weaponry you have. It doesn't come back to bite them this time. And I think that's something that AGF managed to do quite well in the initial stages of Inferno, was they were shutting down any of these risky, crazy plays that were being attempted by Apeks. Mirage was not the same case.
No, absolutely. It was almost like Apeks were their own worst enemies when it came to Inferno. Things have changed drastically since then. And I can appreciate this play from AGF. Like, just dust off the cobwebs, shake it off, try and get up close, just try and go for ruthless aggression. But now Gruestorm around the back of them with the MP9, there's two. And the bombs drop down. AK's also been picked up. He spins around and takes the head off Christo. Individual performance that Apeks desperately required. TMB has used that smoke to perfection to wrap around the side of Marcelios, but now his position is known. Bomb still dropped on the site, and he's going to start to try and peer up through heaven. There's no way that Dennis hasn't heard this. 100% heard him come up, but does he check his close angle? No, he does not, and he will pay the ultimate price. What a round from Grues.
I would say so far, from obviously very small sample size of literally just today, but Grues has probably been my favorite player to watch so far in this team. Like, the amount of double kills, triple kills he's managed to get just off of pure individual skill has been truly impressive, and I can definitely say I've not seen anything from him before. So maybe a bright spark within what is, well, a couple of legendary players. Marcelios, who we saw in the last map, was very impressive. I'm glad to see we're getting some of these star performers, and Nasty as well in the last map was, I feel like he's the loose cannon. Like, if he plays well, this team is truly devastating. Sometimes, though, maybe a bit more of a liability.
It definitely can be, but often with loose cannons, they're also like this X factor that if you're locked into a stalemate and there's a gridlock in place, you just say to Nasty, like, you unleash him and just say, go kill. You know, do your thing. Be as crazy, as out there as possible. It's great from like an IGL's perspective if you know you have a player of this stature that you can just tell to go and do something mad and they will follow. In actual fact, they relish the opportunity. That's what they're chomping at the bit to do every single round. You have to temper them. But sometimes they will make those questionable decisions and they'll get themselves killed. We saw this on Inferno a lot. 40 seconds to go, though. It's a 4v3 and Apeks looking to continue their winning ways. Frostlev, once that smoke clears, will be tested by two oncoming CTs. The timing may not work out for him, but he's missed his opportunity and he gets punished drastically alongside TMB. How the hell is Nasty still alive there?
That's one of those rounds you just want to forget. I'm glad that this isn't like a sort of Twitch streamer where you could see my face, because it was not a smile I had there. The fence definitely played a part, but I'm not going to sit here and blame the fence for that round going wrong. They definitely should have got at least a kill in that situation. And I was going to say, I'm not a fan of teams pushing Monster. I think the risk normally heavily outweighs the reward if you don't know it's clear, and somehow they get away with this with no real trouble. So, well, it's not going the way of AGF thus far. Unfortunately, they're going to have to invest into some pistols for this round. To sort of mention what you were talking about earlier, I think one of the prime examples of like a loose cannon player, or someone who can be a loose cannon, is someone like Madden, for God's sake. Because I think that was something they were really missing before. If you looked at that roster, they were all almost safe hands, and Madden he's insane. I love watching him play, but he's mental.
Oh, absolutely. Meanwhile, it's a 3-on-3. We can revisit that topic in a moment, because AGF probably have their best opportunity to actually win a round, and it's a pretty depressing statistic to bring out as Marcelios puts a bullet into Netric, albeit through the wall. 2-on-2. Christo already with 3. Flashbang up and over. There's plenty of time at their disposal, but they're running out of bodies. And Nasty has already put up 2, as Frostlev has no idea where that second CT resides. Hence the fake gets picked off and the bomb gets denied. A 6-0 lead. And this definitely has an air of deja vu from the start of Mirage.
Yeah, for sure. Just even in the manner they're playing. I said it earlier in the game that they don't really have the same sort of almost patience that other teams will have, especially on a map like Overpass. Normally, you don't really play that aggressive versus rounds where you know your opponent has a weaker purchase. You're going to sit back and, like, for example, the A stat is almost perfect to play defensively when you know that your opponent has a weaker buy, because to get onto it can be very, very difficult. Not for Apeks, though. This almost has the air of disrespect. They are fighting everything they can, getting right up in the face of their opponents. And interestingly, it's going to be a more defensive round when the purchases come up. Bruce, again, is going to be starting things off a different fashion than normal, and I like the boost. TMB none the wiser that they are ready and waiting for him. And I can't actually think of a round where AGF have either gained an advantage or held it for long. Like, Apeks have been so good at getting these opening kills.
Yeah, and what I love about this as well, Tom, is that they're mixing it up constantly. Like, they're so unpredictable. They've gone super aggressive. Hell, they've even pushed Monster, like you said. It's typically not a play that you want to go for time and time again. So when they slow things down, AGF blow all of their utility. They're sat back for ages, waiting and anticipating that push to come in. It wastes valuable time. And when they do push in, well, guess what? You run into boosts, you run into stacks. Apeks are playing this one pretty much flawlessly, but I will also say it feels like AGF, the wind has been taken out of their sails, Tom. That momentum that we discussed on Mirage, it's a thing of the distant past. I feel like they need either a tactical timeout just to rally the troops, or they need like a really big inspirational clutch moment. Because right now, this is just a slow death. They're just being put down one by one, systematically shut out of this map, and they need a resurgence if they're going to come back into this.
Yeah, I think the scariest thing as well is it's the same thing I mentioned in the last map, where I think if you look at some of the other teams, there have been just 3 bombs. That's mental. And it makes sense, like the amount of elimination rounds I think we've had. But yeah, I sort of mentioned it earlier that I think like some teams like maybe Spirit or you go to a Gambit, if Apeks were playing like this versus them, I don't think it would work. Like maybe for a couple of rounds, but eventually they'd fall into a default hold and they would hit the shots. Whereas for AGF, it doesn't seem to matter what they do. Any level of aggression that comes out from Apeks, they just falter. Like even just look at the way that Marcelicious played the latter stages of that round. He gets a kill and then he basically just runs around the corner in Banana and tries to take a fight with the AWP. That is just sheer confidence play. And that only really comes out at the point where you're going, okay, well, they don't stand a chance against us anymore.
Exactly, and you need to retain that respect by imposing your will on the opposition. Otherwise, Marcelios is just going to keep doing this. And it's such a hard thing to read. And when the opposition just simply isn't missing their shots, it just quickly escalates out of control. One way, going the way of Cruz, but he has been nullified. They can go and pick up the rifle from his corpse. I'm pretty sure they'll get their hands on that momentarily as Lucky gets flashed into position. But again, have a look at the lack of utility. Some of the players getting a little bit lower, around the 70 HP mark. Apeks have got a 1-for-1, which typically would favor the Ts. It allows you to spread the CTs out that much thinner, but there's plenty of utility still at disposal from Apeks, and a minute to play with for AGF, and very little map control.
And since the initial stages, they've already made a rotation. Dennis is secondary AWP, and in fact, Marcelius is now getting into position. He's going to go aggressive again. This man doesn't like to sit still. His W key is glued down, and eventually he'll get punished for it. Maybe not expecting to be this far forward. We end up with Dennis in a prime position, but Jacob's already in on the flank. The pistol pulled out. It's what he's known for, and of course he's going to at least get one. Jacob, as well, holding the backline, makes this bomb plant almost impossible. TMB has to move. He has to make a play. His teammate, in the meantime, is pushing forward and ends up sitting right in front of Nasty, who easily closes out the round. 8-0. This is far, far away from Inferno.
Yeah, we have a 008 as well, unfortunately, that has taken shape. But one of the other aspects that's been really great about this, we've been speaking about the aggression from Apeks and with these individual instinctual plays. But look at how well they're playing off this aggression. Marcelios goes aggressive, he gets caught, but they instantly have a player in connector to rip round the back and spray 2 players down. It's almost this controlled chaos, Tom. Like they're making these crazy plays that on paper seem just random, but then they actually have the backup to follow it up. Great shot from Cristo, and those are the kind of moments I'm talking about. Those are the kind of moments that maybe G your teammates up, that start to make them believe again. When you're 8-0 behind, you may as well swing for the fences. You've got nothing to lose, but Dennis has sprayed down Cristo. 4v4.
And it's funny, they've had 8 rounds of this, and they're still being surprised by the repeaks that are coming in. Just sheer levels of confidence. Gonna be Froslev while blind, actually killing off Dennis. Groose is still lurking around this angle. They're gonna go through the smoke behind him. He's still waiting for them, and that's the bomb down. As said, this man always seems to be good for 2. He hasn't had much to do over the last few rounds sat on the B side. In fact, it's another triple kill, leaving TMB alone. We've said he's been the best player so far in the first 2 maps. Unfortunately, the third and final is where he's gone deadly silent, and he's surrounded. Don't knife him. Don't knife him. Okay, it's gonna just be a close range orb strat instead, but they are suffering.
Yeah, the pain is proving to be a little bit too much. They can't quite contend with it. And I'll admit, coming into this tournament, I did obviously have a quick look over Groose. Not a player that I really knew much about coming into this event. I've been very, very impressed with this guy, Tom. Honestly, like he's really made a fan out of me. His positions with the rifles has just been so good. Seems like a real turret kind of player that can just lock down one angle. And as you said, he's always good for multiple. And of course, as I say that, he gets sprayed from Christo through the wall in the head. And it's those kind of moments that maybe can spark something into action. AGF, surely you claw onto this round. You make this yours.
Already. However, Nasty has been able to bring this one back through the smoke. Bomb somewhat left alone. They've started to probe over towards this A site. A lot of the time, Dennis has been here left alone, and the boost comes in once again. They're even prepared for it, but it's still Netric to take the hit. Already in the other direction, a push coming towards A, but they've still left the bomb behind. It's very disjointed at the moment from AGF. I do almost question what the plan is. Marcelicious almost going down. He survives for now. 40 seconds left, and again, they're going to roundhouse back towards B, but the fact is the CTs haven't really moved. It's almost like AGF have been in their minds rotating all these players, and for Apeks, they've just sat still.
Slowing down the dial again. 20 seconds to spare. Netric down first. Running in, being the bullet sponge. Jacob getting one, but the trade's actually going in favor of the Danes. There's just enough time to plant in amongst the smoke. But in amongst that, Dennis now making moves with his 5-7. Can he flick to 2 headshots? Not quite. AGF get their first round. Woo! Better late than never. And there's the hype train from Tom.
Yeah. I'm still not a believer, I'll be honest, and 0010. I remember we did this before, I think with Blair, where we were looking through all the different 00s from James Bond, and I think it runs out after 13, so I don't remember who 0010 was, but that's more brutal than what I've just said.
Oh no! This guy's done you dirty there.
Get it off. That's too much.
Oh no, that's so brutal.
We didn't need to show it. You've now just it's like the guys at DreamHack are just like, he's down on the floor, bleeding out of everywhere, and they're just like giving him an extra kick or two just while he's down. 3 players over 100 ADR in Apeks though. Let's look at the positives. All right, there we go. That's a nice stat. It's a happy stat.
Marcelios having a scout. You can see the impact of losing the previous round. Their economy, everyone under $1,000. So it seems crazy to say, but if AGF can convert this round, then they can break the economy of Apeks, and maybe they can actually end this half with a fairly respectable score. Which, at one point being 9-0, definitely didn't seem the case. Groose trying to spray through towards Connector, doing a little bit of damage, but nothing significant. Christo did get tagged earlier on. I think it was from the scout of Marcelios. So he'll be feeling worse for wear about that trade. Slowing it down again, though, Tom. Both teams taking their sweet time.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
Netric. Yeah, screw your ADR stats. It's not going to change yet, but that's an extra, well, 100 damage. So extra 10. Easy math. But here comes the push, the peek out. Dennis not going to get anything done. Even still, there's 3 players remaining. A couple of them desperately low. Marcelius not connecting the shot. Rotation is coming in from Nasty, but it might be too little too late. He's starting to take a tag from Long, and somehow out of nowhere, they've gone from barely even damaging the side of Apeks to looking like they're going to win a comfortable round. And Netric has just broken all the stats. He's on a comeback.
Do love to see that. Never want to see a player really struggling. So great to see him get the couple kills. ADR now is going to be spiking nicely. Can he keep it up, though? It's great to see a resurgence, but consistency is absolutely paramount now if you're AGF. You know, positives aside, they have to look at the realistic outlook right now of this game. They are still 9-2 behind. They know the Apeks economy is going to be into dire straits. They're already trying to save with Gruus. Alongside this M4, unlikely to see too much else bought alongside it unless they find themselves at that sub $2,000 mark, which they won't be. So I don't expect to see really much purchased alongside this M4. And AGF have a very real opportunity to get 4 or 5 rounds. And honestly, 4 or 5 rounds, not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's workable. That's for sure. The problem is we were sort of talking about this in the last map where they made a slight comeback and then Apex's momentum just never seemed to go anywhere. But I'm more interested in watching Gruus in this round. As said, when they've needed him, he's been the man to multi-frag, and looking like they're going to try and set him up in this scenario. Marcelius not really finding anything. He's dead, for sure. Still manages to hit a dink onto Froslev, and considering there's still the rifle available, you don't really want to give him any opportunities. But look at the players walking into the B site. The bomb's yet to move, but they're going to very quickly realize that there's absolutely no one on B.
Yeah, they have a player on short B side, but that's Nasty with the USP. The site itself is clear, and now that last threat has been contained. And with that, I expect to see them try and save this M4 again. Maybe even throw in one of these USP players as a bodyguard. Try and get some exits if they can, but this round is over. As good as done. AGF will be picking up their 3rd. And that's also a streak starting to come into play. So we spoke before about getting some of that wind back under the sails and a bit of a motivational and inspirational moments take shape. They're reaching that kind of a fulcrum point. Doesn't really matter what happened in the past. It's all about the present, the here and now. And that will see AGF into winning ways. USP's doing a bit of damage, nothing significant. Very unlikely to get a kill out of this round unless the bomb maybe gets a unassuming player on the retreat. Jacob decides he wants to go down with the ship. Try and take someone with him. Unsuccessful. Down he goes. But they do save the M4. And alongside that, they can get on the purchase. Gruus actually could drop an AWP. He's just under the, or over the threshold of dropping it to Marcelios, but decides against it.
Yeah, he's a hoarder. He's keeping all that money for himself. Maybe will come into play over the next few rounds, but we don't have a massive amount left in this first half. But that 9-0 scoreline definitely starting to seem a little bit further away. Although Netric is keeping his kills in line with the amount of rounds, and it's not looking great. Dennis, with a very aggressive push through the smoke, is already going to open things up for his squad, and there's still 2 players lurking in mid. Apeks again, just showing how aggressive they can be, but they've been caught. The patience of the remaining 2 players around that angle have found 2 quick opening kills. Nasty and Gruus needing to now clutch the 2v3.
Getting into position is Gruus. We know that give him an angle, he'll lock it down, he'll get kills. TMB goes alone, gets punished. And now the T's have to turn away from what felt like an open site and go into the murky territory of the unknown of B site. Apeks seem to have a good read of the situation. They instantly go for the wraparound as well, but it'll be too little too late. The site has fallen, and now it's all about the retake. Christo taking a bit of damage. Actually, that was lucky, pardon me, with a HE, and he's in a good position. You don't necessarily expect this from the AWPer. Goes in for 1. Nasty now needs to get aggressive. This is where you need to unleash the beast. There's the first, but no second kill to follow it up. And AGF continue their win streak to 4.
That's what we like to see. I think that's the most passion we've had all day. I feel like that's mainly because we were focusing more so on the Apeks cams, and you're not going to get much from them. But better round from them, and more importantly, the clutch has been taken. I like the angle that they held as well, but it was well played from Nasty to realize that, okay, the reason he's playing on the sandbags is because there has to be a second player holding the cross. Otherwise, the position doesn't make sense. TMB goes running straight through, though, starting to take a leaf out of Apeks' own book, and it's net him the first kill. They should expect this at this point. Like, they have used this boost a multitude of times, and the spam will find nobody. A man advantage kept, and of course, not much invested at all for Apeks in this round.
Just pistols. They got an M4 underway. Marcelios picks that up, uses it, and then loses it straight afterwards. Understandable aggression. AGF, though, with some solid adaptations and seemingly awakening from their slumber. Dennis, last man with a 5.7. We've already seen what the guy's capable of with this gun. But the second that he opens up that door, which effectively is a safety net and an early warning system for our AGF, he likely will go down. So maybe just looking to see if we can get an exit frag, maybe trade up to an AK. Best case scenario would be trading up to the AWP, but you don't expect to see Christo going for that, especially as he's currently located in the Monster. That will mean that AGF have reached that 5-round mark and could even pick up a 6th. And for those of you that tuned out for a few moments, Apeks did pick up 9 in a row, so this is a really solid comeback that's taking shape. Dennis is waiting, but Lucky knew that was a distinct possibility and shuts him down.
Yeah, one thing to note as well, in a lot of the earlier rounds, we saw Apeks winning pretty much every single opening duel. I think they were like 4 or 5-1 in opening duels. That has now started to swing back in the other direction. In fact, it's almost dead even. I think they're now only 1 ahead. So starting to find some of those picks. And more importantly, even if the picks are lost, you can see AGF not necessarily panicking. I think that was some of the things that were happening early, is like they didn't know how to react. So they just tried to continue to fight these players rather than what has been the calm within the storm over the last few rounds. It's going to be aggression again. Marcelios once more is there to find the opener. This time, no real chance at a reaction, but as I said, like it doesn't seem like they're scrambling to try and gain control. Just more calm and collected from the Danes.
Yeah, quite the turnaround from what we saw in the first 5 or 6 rounds, where it was almost these desperation gut reaction calls that were running them into the gauntlet and into disadvantageous positions. Now, they are a player behind, but taking their time, seeing if Apeks maybe overextend. They still have tons of utility they can toss down. Incendiary down on short. Nasty also has a smoke. He can put that into Monster. Another smoke going over. That's the T side of Monster's now been locked down and affords Nasty with a flashbang to go peek and check. Now, this is a worrying sign for AGF because they're running out of time. Sure, 40 seconds is enough to decide to rotate, but considering they have no map control, no intel, for all they know, Apeks have moved into connector. They have to go in for this B hit. You feel like they have to go for this, but instead they're going to draw back and look to rotate onto A and try and sell that fake as much as possible. But when you're against 5 players, it's unlikely they all rotate off. However, Dennis wide swings in, gets picked off. Marcelios gets 1. He gets traded out, and it seems like the fake has at least yielded them a bomb plant.
Somehow, some way, they've made the late rotation work, and 3v3 situation, the CT side actually with no utility, so it's just going to come down to the raw aim fights. The boost is nice, though. Gives Groose an angle onto TMB and clears out the close player. The problem is the remaining 2 have fallen passive, gone all the way back to try and just play the afterplants. They go pushing into Lucky, and well, he's anything but. As now Christo's left. Got to go for this last round of the half, trying to fight things off with the AWP. A peek coming back, and he denies the defusal. No one's watching. They need to get on the bomb, and he's looking to clean it all up. A triple kill at the end for Christo to take their 6th round. A huge round for the man moving north. And we're going to go off to a break to wait for half number 2.
too taboo. Huh. I have tried to be a girl with good intentions, proud to speak my heart without any pretense.
Well, ladies and gents, it's been a real roller coaster of emotions between Apeks and AGF. It looked like it was going to be a one-sided bloodbath again, but AGF heroically stood their ground and picked up 6 in a row to end the first half. And now they trail 9-6. Is this comeback dream possible? If they pick up the second pistol, it absolutely is, but they've lost their key man. TMB goes down to the hands of Gruus, and Netric, at a very rough start, has to turn away and back off as connector door gets closed in his face.
And not the start they were looking for. A second pistol could easily set Apeks straight back on the road to closing out this map after what was an impressive turnaround on Mirage. They've gone a bit further when it comes to Overpass. Still, though, the rotation leaves a stacked A site with just one B defender, but patience from Marsilius is enough to give him an extra kill. Christo had a decent resurgence, a great clutch to end the half, but unfortunately, neither him or either of his teammates can do anything to defend this A side. They had the right read, and now, well, Froslev 1v4, not going to happen.
Impressive pistol work from the Glocks of Apeks. AGF have gone in for a bite, and it's Netric that actually goes in for the scout. Curious if he maybe drops that across to Christo or one of his teammates, or if he does hold on that to himself. If he has a good spawn to peek through middle. Indeed, he does. So they'll be looking for that mid peek. Whether he gets tested or not is yet to be seen. 3 players going up towards him. So here we go. Flashbang in his eyes, and those retinas burned out forces his way back into bathroom. So Apeks doing a good job of at least bypassing one of the threats that was posed against them.
We're going to need to see some magic once again. In some of the earlier stages of the other maps, we really did see the pistols come out to play, but it's been weird. Like, this third map has been really not like the others at all. Like, both teams having almost sort of clear path to the scoreline. 9-0, 9-6. Well, I'm sure for AGF, they're hoping there's not going to be another streak. Otherwise, they probably are out of this one. Of course, the reality is, and it's a bit of a depressing one, but I'll be brutally honest and say I think that the decider match is probably going to be these two teams again.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. That would make the most sense. I mean, I think Floscola probably have a few things to say about that, but definitely feel that's the likelihood. 35 seconds left, having to see which of those two teams may have to go through the elimination match, in which the winners match. Lucky taking some shrapnel. And at this kind of a point, they wanted to go save. They wanted to rinse and repeat, but they will be denied the full sweep of players, and it may go from bad to worse. They're going to concede the round. That much is already locked in. That much is already certain. Christo does hold his ground, does more damage than he receives, and that forces Nasty to back off. He does have one of the Galils, so don't want to lose that and throw it across to the CTs. But now Netric just get found by Jacob. Some aggression comes in. Frost left with 1 and a second, making this costly. And no more players coming up long means that AGF can retrieve those guns. They can actually upgrade.
It's fairly unusual that you lose a second round and come back into the third one with a better buy than you had, especially if you force sport. So, yeah, this is actually going to end up being a fairly big improvement. I do think Apeks, there are some issues where this team seems to overextend quite regularly. Like, Nasty's probably the main man I look to for those sort of situations. Like, we saw that earlier as well, where you want those extra frags so badly you end up giving weaponry away. This time it was actually Jacob just trying to go for the refrag and ends up handing an AK away. See if it comes back to bite them, because thus far I don't think AGF have done a fantastic job of punishing their opponents when they've made these sort of mistakes. And that's why I do worry for Apeks going forward in this tournament. Like, there are multiple teams. Like, even if you look at someone like Nemiga, sure, they're playing with currently 2 stand-ins today and obviously 1 stand-in going forward for the rest of the tournament. But on an individual level, if you give them those sort of like 50-50 fights, it's not 50-50 because they have such ridiculous aim that you will end up being punished. And they're very good at catching teams off guard. So even if you're looking to get into like the playoffs or top 4 or later on in the tournament, Apeks are going to have to be more careful.
Smoke down into the barrels. The forward lucky to hold his position, but TMB gets a little bit antsy, looks for information, gathers it. But it could be a false narrative because it's only 1 player over on short B. The rest of Apeks are now congregating into bathrooms. Well, they'll be up against Christo and a scout. The guy has some snappy aim. We saw it in the final round of the first half. He pulled off a beautiful clutch under very different circumstances, but he gets slow peaked, tries to go in for a second, misses out on his opportunity, and with his life, the site will follow and probably the round on top of it. And to make matters worse for AGF, they don't really have any utility kits or really any interest. You just want to hold on to this AK and Galil. It'll allow you to get a slightly better buy. But Tom, they're running out of time. They're running out of rounds. They've got to make this next rifle round stick.
Yeah, if anything, this next round is them going to be having more than they could ever need in a buy situation. They'll have the AWP. They could even invest into 2 if they really wanted to. They're going to have the extra AK. I think Lucky's even got to the point where he doesn't want to save this Galil, so he's just going to look to try and do some damage with it. Personal preference, I don't really mind that too much because the Galil sucks. So I can get that. And sure, this round is do or die because they have just given up what is potentially some extra bonus cash just to try and do some damage. They made things costly over the last few, but yeah, as you said, this is it.
Potential pathway to the winner's match or the elimination match. We may see them play again today in our next best of 3, or they may very well bypass Flo Scola. Meanwhile, though, Apeks 12-6 in the lead, looking to play aggressively, pushing through on Monster, waiting for those grenades that are now starting to detonate in front of them. Molotov, HE, Flash is also being tossed in. That Molly's about to clear. Flashbang out. Lucky realizing it, smokes himself into safety. They have a good crossfire being established over on the sandbags as well, but now TMB has to smoke just to keep himself alive, using that angle to go back in for more. Up until this point, he was the best performing player on the server. He's had a bit of a slow one on Overpass. Now would be a good time for him to show up again. And Lucky, maybe waiting for a flashbang from one of his teammates. Netric spins around, deals with Dennis, allows TMB to open up his arms and start to spray out some of these oncoming Ts. It's a great hold, all things considered. And Jacob, last man standing, gets sprayed down for Frostlev, 2nd in a row. AGF, we said they needed to start winning some rifle rounds. Well, they've delivered.
Yeah, and more so what they've managed to achieve over the last few rounds have actually put a bit of an awkward spot, you could say, for Apeks. Because there's a couple of players, for example, Jacob, I think, has over $6,000 going into this round. But, oh, this is a weird one. They've got a hero AK, but then Jacob could actually just afford an AK. So it's almost a mix of a half buy and a full buy, because there's no way Gruce can buy in the next round. Even Marcelios can't buy into the next round. Dennis, Jacob, and Nasty can. Yeah, I've got a lot of questions. I think that's all I'm gonna say. I don't know what's the plan here, because they could have just got Jacob on a hero AK and gone with that, and they could have bought comfortably into the next.
Questions being asked. Oh, the Glock headshot from Dennis. Gruce able to capitalize on that. One of my head-scratching moments was that you can see Marcelios has a Tech 9 and Nasty has a Deagle. Well, Dennis had a Glock. Like, surely one of those 2 players tosses over the upgraded pistol to Dennis. Especially with it being Dennis. I can't believe for a second Dennis would prefer the Glock over those guns. Like, surely not. So, may not really matter at the end of the day. Apeks is still in this round regardless. 42 seconds left, all bunching up towards the B side. Interesting positions being attained from AGF. Instead of going for the B site itself, they're both stacking in short. So they've actually given up the B site and playing more for a retake. This could prove to be a costly mistake. It's not necessarily one that Apeks will be anticipating, but that smoke put down onto short almost guarantees the bomb plant. Unless Frostlev gets a little bit spicy and tries to spray through there, he decides against it. Wants to keep his position uncompromised, looking to now boost over. Frostlev spotting into the site. Already time starting to dwindle away on the fuse. And now the retake comes into play.
A few flashbangs available, and they've actually left a player pretty blind on the push. Grusto already picking off one. He needs a multi-frag, and he might just be about to get it two already to his name. The diffuser coming in, he gets the kill. And he's going to have time, I think, just about finding the bomb. It's going to be close, but eventually it is taken by Frostlev. An 8th round, but a very costly one at that. And interestingly, the bomb plant actually makes a fairly big difference. Although it was a pretty difficult situation, and Apeks definitely could have come out of it, a bomb plant means that all the questions I had about their economy are now gone, and they've just done a hell of a lot of damage in what was a fairly weak purchase going into it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, without the bomb plant, you're looking at maybe some Tech 9s, Deagles, maybe not even a buy in total. As it stands, though, they use Marcelios' Galil to devastating effect. Good flashbang tossed in. A 1-for-1 trade. Apeks will be happy with that outcome. Still maintaining the bulk of their utility. 2 players on full utility. Mollies and smokes. And they just force AGF back. That respect being shown again. They still have the AWP, though, in the hands of Christo, who's perched up on the A site. But Apeks already getting a lot of map control. They've got connector, bathrooms already, and they're moving in position on long.
He had a bit of a bad map in the last one, and has had a few moments in this one that are memorable for sure. Does look like Christo's going to be pressured once again, as he's got Netric alongside him, the man at a point in this match who had more deaths than ADR. That's changed, thankfully. And the boost is almost perfect. Who utilizes teammate's body to gain him a kill, and now the remaining 3 players are all having to push him from the same angle. It's a much more passive hold coming in from AGF as they sit back, patiently waiting for anybody to push into their crosshair. Netric all too easy on the first as the Molotov does deny the plant. They actually go pushing in, not playing for the after plant situation. And Marcelicious, there's no way he actually gets the kill onto Lucky. And I think he will get the bomb down here. The problem is TMB should kill him the second he gets off, although it's a miss. I thought for a second he might actually get away with that. Nonetheless, AGF take the round, but I'm not feeling comfortable in a lot of the situations that should almost be easy for them.
No, I'm right alongside with you. That was multiple occasions in that round where you feel like they're going to pull the trigger and just get a very comfortable, convincing round, and then suddenly there's only 2 players left. Their economy not in great shape either. Netric down to below $4,000 alongside TMB. Of course, they can buy again, no problems, but it's more about the longer haul, the bigger picture, and of course, they still trail by 3 rounds. So at this point, their economy in no great shape. Apeks are continuing to apply the pressure. And although AGF are landing some solid shots, you feel like, for me, Tom, you feel like they're on their last lifeline, like their safety net's about to burst. Now, this could be a way of getting themselves another lifeline because Apeks are basically down onto a half-buy situation. This should be a freebie gimme, fairly straightforward round. AGF need to make sure they take it and have very few casualties in the process.
Oh, I'm not overly confident in that. The push already coming in, and Nasty is already going to find himself one. Masterlicious has found another. Christo having to almost just try and force a band-aid on it to try and fix this round because everything has fallen apart. Another kill comes in for Gruz, and Frostlev now, he's trying to at least keep their attention as the flank comes in. Netric, the man who's been pretty quiet throughout this map so far, needing a hero play, and Frostlev's actually getting flanked by Jacob. This has gone as bad as it could with the pistols. You said this needed to be a standout round. Well, maybe it could be a standout for him. Unfortunately, Jacob denies it. And I think that kind of says it all, Vince, when before they even hit the site, I was like, I don't know. I don't feel confident.
I mean, it ends up being a standout round, Tom, but for all the wrong reasons. Like, what am I watching, mate? Like, every single opening duel, the Pistols won it against the full buy. It's not as if AGF had, like, UMPs or a FAMAS all over the place. Like, they had M4s. They had good positions. How in the hell has that happened? And AGF as well, you have to say, momentum-wise, sure, they were trailing at that point, what, 12-9? But keep in mind that 9 of those rounds were in a row to Apeks on the first half. Like, this second passage of play, this second half that we've been watching has been all AGF. So that is purely mind-blowing to me that they've conceded that round.
Yeah, I think they just look shaky on the CT side. I'm not confident that they're going to be winning a lot of these duels. I think if it's maybe Cristo on the angle, then I'm like, okay, he'll probably hit the shot. But there's been a lot of sort of sloppy mistakes that which I think they're going to watch back and just be like, okay, that was a bit silly. You never know, though. Maybe they'll do the same right back. TMB finding the first. Cristo has said he's the player over the last few rounds at least I've had some confidence in, and he's going to manage another opener. Jacob hoping for a trade, but there's nothing to be had. And with Gruce, who has been one of the standout players going down, there needs to be someone else to step up to the mark.
It was a bit of a ruse, though, because although Jacob has shown a lot of presence towards Long, his 2 teammates have made their presence known now on Monster. And it's TMB that's sent tumbling. An important kill from Jacob because now it keeps that Cristo in position a little bit longer. They now know one player at least is coming through connector. So Jacob's done his job, now needs Dennis and Marcelios to clean up the rest. Flashbang through, proceeding the push does not affect Dennis, who carves in for 2 headshots. And Cristo steps up with 1 to add to his other 2, but he only had 3 HP left and he gets finished off by Dennis. A 3K to him, and Apeks bypassing almost a very awkward situation.
He smiled, Vince. It looked like one of those sort of like painful forced smiles, like when you're sort of like, you know when the guy, when you're taking your school photo, you feel awkward and he goes, say cheese, and you're like, yes, I'm very happy about this. That's the smile it looked like, because that was not a situation that Apeks ever really should have been in, but they got through it. And I think that's the important thing at this point. Like, AGF had another opportunity. Oh dear. That's a nice nade stack. It's one that's, I wouldn't say common, but we've definitely seen it a fair few times before. And I like the fact that Apeks have decided, okay, let's try something a little bit different. Cristo, though, again, last 2 rounds, he's been so clinical. A triple in the last, a double in this one. Unfortunately, they're not gaining any of these rounds, but Lucky might have just turned the tide of this one.
Very well could have. It is Marcelios and Gruce again, though, that are making moves over on B. Molotov put down. There is a way round the side of it, though. They can wait this out. Still plenty of time alongside it. Lukey did spot them both in position, and Froslev gets aggressive, takes down Marcelios through the wall. AGF have been unrelenting, but I have to echo your sentiments. Without Cristo, this game is already done, Tom. This game is already over.
It's the goal to he's just taking fights with a FAMAS in mid. Like, it's not something I would really advise if you're thinking of taking a leaf out of his book, unless you are the next star, maybe a rank S king. But now we get another hero rifle. This one a bit more standardized. It's just going to be Jacob trying to grab them around. The last few have been so ridiculous. I genuinely don't know what stance to take here. Because you have to bear in mind that that was a pistol win for Apeks, a very close round that should have almost been won by AGF if it wasn't for Dennis. And then they had another go at it and did win the round. Now you've got Apeks on a weaker buy where they're going to put Jacob into position, but they're expecting it at this point.
They expect it, and so far, done a good job of swatting away the aggression. AGF standing firm, just a rock in the hands of Nasty. Not going to do too much at that kind of a range. Needs to close the gap, but in doing so, puts himself in danger. No more grenades either here, Tom, and it's looking pretty grim. Looking at someone like Jacob to maybe just bust out and get some big entries that they can then capitalize on, but they're walking into the man of the hour, the man of the moment, showing us, putting himself in the shop window and saying, this is why North wanted to have me for the Masters. because I'm capable of these shenanigans. TMB at range gets one, but Jacob at least trades back. And Nasty, who has picked up the Deagle, now has a chance to use it against the oncoming CGs. Hold the phone for a second. 2 big headshots, keeping the economy of AGF low. And even though they lose the round, Tom, that's a bit of a minor victory, I would say.
Yeah, making things at least a little bit more costly when I think they may likely have a buy coming back into this one. It's not amazing, but it's something to say the least. I'm actually really excited to see like Christo play in North and in a role that I think will actually suit him better, like given opportunities to be a little bit more aggressive. I think that's why obviously the move came in to take out MSL, is because he wants to be the one taking those opening picks, and it's going to be him again to push into middle. They haven't been able to stop him over the last few rounds, and it's almost like he's just taken all strategy out of this one. It's just like, okay, guys, I've got my Dora the Explorer backpack on, and you're going to climb in the back, and we're going to get through this.
Yeah, definitely line up a chiropractor for Christo after this performance, especially if AGF do come out ahead. Dude has been carrying some real weight on those shoulders. It would be devastating for him if AGF were to concede and lose this map now after the performance that he's been posting up. Nasty coming down on long. There is a smoke there. 2 players waiting eagerly, one of which is the man that we just highlighted, Christo. Still has a smoke, no flashbang though. Flash completely absent from the initial charge, and now one gets tossed in, but it's only going to work against Apeks. Although Dennis does finally put down Christo and put an end to his kill streak, it's a great cost of HP bars. Jacob though comes back in again, forces away Netric. They somewhat give up the site control, but with 3 players against 2 and some utility on top of it, AGF could just give up this plant and play retake and have a pretty good opportunity, or maybe not required. Jacob cartwheeled out from TMB's M4, who's dissolving the push. And now Dennis, with a measly amount of bullets left, will be sticking the plant, says, screw it, I'm going to hold this down. But AGF do not fall for it. 2-round deficit now.
It's almost hard to believe that there was not only a point in this game where it was 9-0, but also 12-6, like a further lead extended. But again, you mentioned Christo, that's another triple kill. Like the multi-frag rounds, he's now looking to, I think, top the charts for multi-frags so far in this game. I think he's up to 8 2+ kill rounds, which is ridiculous. And well, we can add another one to the tally. 3 straight off the back. Sure, it was more of an eco, but there's a level of confidence where you do the same thing again and again and again. Your opponents wait for you. There's multiple players watching for you, and you're still getting a multi-frag. I will say, I'm not sure who threw the flash, but it was spot on.
Oh, yeah. Allowing Christo to show what he's capable of, but the flash almost the MVP of that round. Netric comes back with the FAMAS, 30 kills. To Christo, and to put it in perspective, the nearest player on his team's on 20. So he really is stepping up, and it feels like these last 6 or 7 rounds, Tom, he's really started to accelerate into a bit of a supernova of a player. Now Apeks do have another purchase, it's full AKs. Do they anticipate another aggressive push? Well, Christo's already moving into position. If it's worked before a few times, why the hell not try again? This time though, a good counter flash tossed in.
I think he's on something like 5 rounds in a row with 2+ kills, which that's utterly ridiculous. I don't know how many times I would have seen. That's not something I've really checked for in the past because you don't really have it as a storyline. But yeah, he was having an okay game, but going into this half, I don't think he was even close to the top of the score. But we were looking at the likes of Groose, who has definitely teetered off a bit. I think because he's normally the first man in. So if you're coming up against Christo, you're normally dead. Still on 25 kills himself, however. But the tides have definitely turned from what was looking like a dominating match, and he's slowing down a bit. I think that's the right call. You don't want to keep running into the blender. You don't want to keep giving this young Dane an opportunity to shut you down. However, with 45 seconds left, they're making a move back towards this B site, and they really haven't found much out about the setup from the CT side. Luckily for them, they're actually out towards long.
Information has been attained. TMB waiting for that opportunity and nearly gets 2. Bruce dropped down to 6 and Lucky, has missed his chance. Now Netric with the M4. Looking to try and deal the lethal dose of bullets across to the oncoming T's. Jacob, last man standing again. It was another round where they had opportunities, they had chances. 9 seconds. Now, as 2 CTs line up, you thought there was maybe a window of opportunity, but it's quickly closed. AGF have closed the gap. It's 14-14, and Apeks call the tactical timeout.
So, you know, like moments ago, I was talking about 2+ kill rounds. I'm fairly certain, although obviously HOTV is a little bit behind us, I think he's on 11 now. 11 2+ kill rounds. That's insane. Like, sure, in this round, he definitely wasn't the pivotal player, like getting 1 kill, I think, through the smoke and then finishing things off. But I don't think I've seen a turnaround like this, even just from an individual player in a long time. Now over 106 ADR as well. And yeah, there's a big reason that we're seeing a tactical pause coming. Okay, it might be 10. I might have been a round ahead of myself, but either way, only some Mac 10s, a few pistols. Looks like they're going to go for a fast play towards this B site, and it seems like the opposition are prepared. A 3-man stack to start things off, ready and waiting for the take, and they're lining up this same nade stack. Now, if this was to work again, I would be a little bit worried. Normally, that tries to shy players away. I like that they're setting up ready for the push once these nades actually go in, but Lucky already in a good position. However, it's the same thing again. They're ready and waiting for these plays, but they always seem to lose the opening duels.
But they have also positioned through Connector in such a good spot that they can quickly rotate around the side. Netric now shows his hand from heaven. It's a bit of a labored spray. It cost him a little bit of time and a bit of health on top of it. But now Dennis up against him. It's Mac 10 against the M4. At this range, the Mac 10 is barely going to scratch the surface. But Netric doesn't know as to where Dennis is currently residing. Dennis has control over the bomb. He can play some mind games, start to make a move over. Plenty of time left. He could even decide to cancel this rotation and go back to B if he so chose. But Netric also has the same idea, keeping himself in heaven so he can hear any early sound cues and try and capitalize on that. This all comes down to timing. Netric has the right read of the situation. But now that the gap is being closed, this is where the Mac 10 can start to punish a little bit more. Now Netric can hear. He knows exactly where Dennis is and gets the kill. And AGF will now have a match point. After being 9-0 behind in the early stages of this map, they now have a chance to take all the chips home.
Yeah, and a turnaround from him as well. We were sort of like joking. I think he was 0010. We spoke about how his deaths were higher than his ADR. 17 and 23 is a pretty decent turnaround from Netric, and winning a crucial round. I think that was a 1v3 situation as well for him to take. So everybody coming up clutch now for the side of AGF, and they are 1 round away from moving forward into what will be the upper bracket match. Apeks potentially facing elimination. And well, right after this one, there's no real breaks for them in this sort of scenario. Either way, there's still an opportunity here. We've seen 1 overtime already. Definitely not something we expected in the first game of the day, with Spirit facing this Swedish side of Flow. Can AGF deny Apeks the chance?
It would be fitting for this game to go to overtime. It has been very close, but in strange, streaky fashion. Since Apeks posted up that 9-0, it really has been all AGF. And especially on the CT side, they've looked impenetrable at times. Utility on both sides of the equation. Christo now, who's been getting a lot of success with the M4, actually picking the AWP back up one more time. Nasty is all alone. This is the unleashed X Factor that we were talking about, but a good flashbang tossed in deals with him, and no one pushing behind him allows AGF to know exactly what's coming up. Now they can bolster up their A defense. They quickly have 4 players in proximity. Enough grenades to make a real go of this, but Groose has got 2 headshots in quick succession. And now TMB needs to make moves through the smoke. There's one. A second kill comes his way as they line up for him. But it comes down to a one-on-one. Dennis, who lost out in the last clutch, has to go one better and stands his ground and keeps them alive in overtime.
It feels so good when I'm around you. Never felt this way before. It feels so nice that we can get through anything. I didn't believe in love. Yeah, it's true. I didn't believe in this till there was you. After all that's said and done, I like where we've begun. Don't you wanna know forever, baby? Fall into my arms and take me. Heaven is a place of yours and you were mine. Don't you wanna know forever, baby? Everything reminds me lately. Heaven is a place of yours and you were mine. It feels so good when I'm around you, and the dogwood's all in bloom. They smell so sweet as they surround you in the air. I didn't believe in fate. Yeah, it's true. I didn't believe in love till I met you. After all that's said and done, I like what we've begun. Don't you wanna know forever, baby? Fall into my arms and take me. Heaven is a place of yours and you were mine. Don't you wanna know forever, baby? Everything reminds me lately. Heaven is a place of yours and you were mine. Don't you wanna know forever?
It's only fitting that this best of 3 comes to a conclusion after an overtime. A 9-0 lead on Apeks fell on deaf ears, and AGF came back somehow, some way. And Tom, I don't think I'm alone in feeling that at 9-0, I felt like this game was over. I could not see a way back in for AGF, and yet Christo proved otherwise.
Yeah, I feel like it should be over, if anything. We had some huge performances. We mentioned Christo. We've had players on the other side, but this is a pace change. Bruce already trading nades with an opponent. Christo, he actually gets away with a kill there. Slightly faster than Jacob, but nonetheless losing one of your heavy hitters. And it looks like in overtime, Jacob looks to take this into his own hands. 2 kills on the opener. Lucky, well, he's got plenty of cash available to him, 16k MR3, so he might as well give this a go.
Oh yeah, all guns blazing. Lucky Luke style, perhaps. Grus as he moves in through the bathrooms. Footsteps aplenty, preceding the push. They knew exactly where he was. And Apeks is thinking, why didn't we just do this in regulation? This would already be over. Nope. Let's do it the hard way, guys.
I guess having a game plan of make sure you insta headshot Christo is always going to be a rough one to try and convert with how well he's been playing. As you mentioned, he's gone back to the AWP, and there's a part of me that almost wishes that their economy was a little bit lower, because it was his rifle that was getting a lot of those multi-frag kills. Sure, this gives a different dynamic to the game, but I don't think he's been as impactful with an AWP. I
agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I don't think it's, as we say that, of course, he gets flung by Grus. But I don't think he's a bad AWPer by any stretch. It's just he was that damn good with the M4. I think it allowed him more mobility to play like these audacious peaks and repeats. Grus, though, gets caught up close. Second player in, but the spray is good. It's a 3v3. But considering that they lost Christo basically for free, this isn't a bad second win from AGF in the round. Keeping themselves up close. 2 players have moved into short side of B. So if Apeks decide to rotate down into B, this very well could be a death sentence.
Yeah, the problem is they're very, very reliant on Netric to hold his ground and make sure things don't slip away. Still plenty of time for them to play with as well. Might fall into the trap of thinking this has been a rotation. We know that they like to try and fake a lot of rounds out with their utility, but this time it does seem like they're going to continue to push in this direction. No rotation back, but there's the potential for a flank. The fact is, though, AGF, I think they almost think this is a fake at this time. It's going to take them far too long, and again, it's either going to have to be a full-on retake or Netric's just going to have to do everything on his own.
Well, he's had quite the turn of fortune, but with Molotovs and bullets all around him, the liquid fire will devour him whole. But AGF hold the line. Lose the first player, still come out ahead. Apeks will be wondering what could have been. As it stands, though, we're tied up again.
How does this happen? All right, that's like, obviously, I think they assumed that was stacked up, but a man on low HP in a Molotov gets the kill, and then there's no one watching the flank. Like, they don't even keep an eye on it. And I don't think that the CT side would have been particularly quiet about it either. So maybe a slight mistake coming in from Apeks towards the latter stages. Christo, though, that's now 1 kill in 3 rounds. Trying to get aggressive with the AWP. I think the problem has become he is almost feeling the need to try and force these rounds at this point. Like, he was so impactful, so integral in bringing things back that he's just falling into the hands of this opposing AWP, which wasn't something we saw too much from Marsilius either. So we'll see. Quick push in, lucky, well placed. An easy kill for the first, but it only gets tougher from here. He's holding the line. Teammate trying to throw in some nades, but Nasty just runs the gauntlet through short and finds an entry with his teammate. 2 players remaining, TMB and Froslev. The last round of the first half of OT. They've got to try and win this one.
Odds stacked against them. TMB with the AWP has had a bit of a slower performance after being great in the first 2. Gets splattered by Nasty's AK. And Froslev's smoke will allow and alert Apeks to his presence. Who gets the kill is the final question, and Grus will give us the answer. And as much as we've been waxing lyrical about how good Christo has been, Grus has been definitely under the radar. He's been consistently churning out the frags. He is neck and neck with Christo. They're both in the mid-30 kills right now.
Yeah, I think the main reason that we sort of got carried away in the other direction is because of the manner that Christo was getting those kills, but also a lot of the time we didn't talk about Grus because he was the one who was getting caught. And over the last few rounds, that hasn't been happening. And yeah, he's still been just chugging along. I think on the CT side as well, he had a lot of multi-kill rounds that really should have been punished. Now going into the CT side, the better for both. And yeah, a good chance for Apeks to take this over the line. Of course, the winner of this is going to be going on to face Team Spirit. This is the main reason I think that we're likely to see this rematch come through. As chances are, well, either team will be able to beat Outflow, and probably neither of them will be able to beat out Team Spirit. Although Team Spirit definitely showed some vulnerabilities earlier in the day. They mentioned it themselves that they picked Nuke to practice. Whereas I think versus maybe AGF or Apeks, they probably wouldn't do that. I feel like they just make sure they get into the playoff stage. But then again, I guess all of this for them is more of a practice for Masters. So who knows?
Yeah, it was quite telling, wasn't it? Because we were even saying while casting it that it felt like they were out of sorts. So to hear, I think it was Sundai Young in the interview, right? Basically say that, you know, we were in a position where we were trying to practice and officials get a little bit more sort of experience in that sense on Nuke. And it makes sense to a degree. Whether they do it against Apeks or AGF, not entirely sure, to be honest. Maybe not. But we'll have to wait and see. Then again, you know, they ended up winning. But winning in such a tight fashion, I feel like they're going to learn a lot from that experience and probably try and implement and make the changes accordingly. So we've just been kind of filling in a bit of time there as there was a tactical timeout called. And now Apeks and AGF go at it again. The war continues. Apeks just 2 rounds shy of booking their spot in the upper elimination game. AGF 2 rounds shy from facing off against the Swedes later on, and there's that double nade stack again. AGF put it to use.
It almost gets 2 kills as well. Like, Groose has also been tagged down to 34 HP. Poor timing, but that's the thing. Like, we saw Apeks using that nade stack quite regularly, and it was almost like a counter to themselves because they've been using the boost more than AGF has. So they've just yoinked that straight out of their playbook and then used it against them to counter their aggression. So a very good early start for AGF. TMB, he's in such a good position here, and the player about to peek him is very low on HP. Dennis having to pivot with an AWP into an angle that really isn't favorable. 2 men left on this CT side. Nasty. Marcelius to try and close this one out. He will at least find a pick. He was good on their CT side for sure, but this is a big ask.
This would require a Herculean effort, honestly, from one of these 2 players. Nasty with a good flash preceding him. Can't make the most of it. Marcelios tossed the last bit of utility that he had under possession. And now, does he go forward? He has plenty of economy to do so. Decides to change up his angles and actually to save. So this is going to be maybe taking more of a tactical timeout while he is still alive. You know, he has enough money to buy for the rest of this half anyway. So may as well use it for some good. But AGF will tie us back up again, 17 apiece, and I wouldn't rule the second overtime from being possible here, Tom. It feels like there's very little to determine between these 2 teams. Rip.
As you mentioned, it doesn't really matter too much in 16K. I think that's the reason. That's my personal preference, is the 16K MR3, just because I don't really want to see finances really playing a part when it comes to overtime. We are going to get Marcelius with his AWP back in play. The other side of things, still just sticking with the 5 rifles. As said, I'm glad to see it because it's where Christo really was shining earlier in the match. Because it does feel like quite a long time ago. The peak about to come in from Marcelius, and just look at Christo's angle. We've got a standoff. Is anybody going to make the peak? Actually, Marcelius is just going to throw an incendiary back down. It doesn't really tell too much, but the T's will know, okay, they've thrown in that utility, but they haven't actually made a play off of it.
Another flash tossed out. AGF really slowing it down and grinding those gears to a halt. Marcelios takes the initiative, gets back aggressive again, but he's by and large alone. He does have a teammate in long. Not much room for error. Doesn't miss. Course corrects in time, and it's Christo that goes down to his hand. Now, Christo's been a little bit absent in this overtime period. I'm not sure if he's actually added a single kill since we went into overtime. It's not much if he has. So that could be a bit of a concern for AGF if their star player starts to run out of fuel. TMB in the meanwhile, spraying up through the smoke, nothing really forthcoming. They have Lucky to join them. Now the smoke will dwindle. Nasty may want to go for a peek. Is there a flash from one of his teammates? It's only him that actually possesses one. First kill goes his way, and Cruz helps him out for the second. 20 seconds to play with. Lukey was always a dead man, Tom. There was no way forward for him. Apeks have another match point.
Yeah, cheeky team ace to get them there as well. And Cristo back on the AWP, looking to try and find those early picks once again. The fact is, though, their patience, I don't necessarily mind, but it seems like the problem with it is Apeks, again, they seem to be fairly dynamic. Like, we will go for these aggressive pushes, but they like to switch things up. The boost not really being implemented for long, at least. And again, Apeks have just fallen back into incredibly passive positions. I think they were almost trying to force AGF to execute onto them, but because of the sort of rounds that we've seen earlier, never mind. They've changed their mind. They pushed through Monster. These guys are mental. That's so risky, especially in a round like this to do, but they've gotten away with it. Sometimes they say only the brave. Well, that has paid off massively.
Who dares wins, Tom, and it's that man Nasty. Who else that goes aggro? Now Cruz is going to be making moves behind the tees. Great flick from Marcelios. That could be the final nails being put into the coffin. Incendiary down onto short. And Frozlev decides to push through that Molotov. Shows the desperation. They're also being flanked on. Tag it, bag it. This is over. Cristo, as good as he's been, has 40 seconds, no control over the bomb, and every single player on Apeks is full hit points. They have plenty of utility. It's so hard to see how the Dane will strive. Gets him for one, but Apeks, it took them a long time. It was laborious. They did more laps than they were requiring, but they eventually got it done, Tom. They take it 2-1 in the end, and they will face off against Spirit next.
It's always nice to see a happy Dennis, but I feel like you have to be, you know, get yourself a little bit of a break, whereas the guys on the other side of AGF are now going to have to go on to play Floscola, the Swedish side, waiting for them in that lower bracket. And realistically, I want to know, I have my own questions. I don't know if the desk can ask this one, but who made that call in the last round? Was it the players themselves, or was it Dennis going push Monster? Because that is one of the boldest players I think I've ever seen in a map point winning situation.
Yeah, indeed.
Kicked off Overpass with Apeks running rampant on their CT side, and yet somehow their opponents in AGF just managed to make an unbelievable comeback. But was it the fault of Apeks, or was it AGF brilliance, Blair?
I think it's honestly a bit of both, right? I feel like once they had that lead, 9-0, they were looking solid indeed. Everyone just popping off, and then they kind of lifted the foot off a little bit off the pedal, maybe a little bit of overextension a couple of rounds, allowing AGF back in. And then on the T side, I think they kind of ran out of ideas, to be very honest. They're just relying on taking duels and whatnot. Messy game overall. I'm kind of happy in a way that Apeks got the win at the end over there, but it should have been way easier.
Vu, let's talk then about the T side, as Blair's mentioned it. You seem to lack confidence and faith in the Apeks T executes.
Yeah, it seemed like Apeks really didn't have... They had set executes, but they didn't have them kind of cleaned up in the way they needed. And I think you can see it really in the way the CT sides went. When you look at Apex's CT side, they had a lot of mid-round aggressions to get frags back and get information and bring the round back into their favor. Whereas AGF, by the end of regulation, they just started playing back on the sites and saying, you can't execute on us, you can't take the bomb site, we're just going to chill back. And I think the fact that they kind of changed that in overtime may have been what led to their downfall, because that was a pretty big comeback, and Apeks really didn't have an answer to those passive setups.
And Blair Christo, I think he was at 33 kills in regulation, and yet then he just seemingly disappeared in overtime. Do you think if he hadn't, that actually AGF would have taken the win?
I feel they could potentially have that. First half of overtime, he was part of 3 opening duels, of which he won one of them, but got immediately traded by Jacob. I wasn't a big fan of some of the angles he was holding. He did get CSGO'd a little bit, some unfortunate timing from him, but he was very, very quiet in overtime, kind of fell off. On the other hand, Grus for the side of Apeks, he was just popping off that entire game, finishing on 36 kills. Very impressive, and ably supported by Jacob as well. And for me, Grus was just fantastic. He was the counterpart for the side of Apeks compared to Christopher AGF, but in the end, yeah, he delivered consistently, especially in that overtime as well.
And Blair, I just want to stick with you because it seems like you're a fan of the marvelous Mr. Marcelius.
Yes, I am. I mean, who is it? The guy, he wasn't like fragging like crazy, like, you know, like a Jacob or Gross or even Christo on the other side, but he was hitting so many crucial kills. He didn't need to get like a 3K or a flashy, you know, 4K or even an ace for that matter. He didn't have really big rounds, but every kill he got, he was very precise. He wasn't missing too many shots. And almost every kill I feel like he got in those rounds day one was kind of the turning point of that particular round. So he was someone to really watch out for me, and for Vu as well.
Now we've seen Apeks play, and of course we've seen Spirit play as well. Spirit are known for having a really connected team. Apeks, do you think they've got a chance against them tomorrow, Vu?
I mean, the same way that Flow managed to bring it into overtime on Nuke, I think you can't count them out entirely, but they're certainly going to need to bring something a little bit more impressive than today. And given that their map pool is a little bit lacking, have to say Spirit's probably got the upper hand. I mean, they've certainly got the upper hand, but they're probably going to bring it home.
Well, hopefully we're going to hear from Dennis very, very soon. He is, of course, the in-game leader for Apeks. Oh, we're going to actually have Jacob, I'm hearing in my ear. And I've not spoken to him since he left 100 Thieves, so I'm quite excited about that. So hopefully he's going to be ringing our doorbell right now. Blair, for you, Jacob, how is he looking in this roster now?
He's looking great. Like, I think he's been consistently like top fragging and looking very solid as a player. But for me, I don't think they've fully gelled well yet as a team. So that's what I'm waiting for right now.
All right. And what about for you, V?
I mean, he's obviously been a fantastic player on the team. What I'm looking for is for him to bring, you know, a little bit more to the team. They said he's the second voice in the team, maybe clean up, you know, some of those T sides, maybe improve one of their nuke or their train, both of which are, you know, a little bit lacking, and see if they can actually become, you know, move up in the tiers of teams.
Well, we're going to be seeing AGF play again today. They're going to be going up against Flow's Gola. And I am wondering if AGF, now they are warmed up, now Christo is probably chomping at the bit to redeem himself after that overtime performance. Maybe this is going to be a quick 2-0, Blair. Ooh. Hold that thought. We can ask that in a bit because we've got Jacob on the line. Well, howdy ho. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the win. I'm saying this very fast because we don't have much time with you, Jacob. So I've got to ask a question that Tom posed at the end of that match, which is whose call was it to rush onto Monster in that final round of overtime?
A good question. I can't really remember, to be honest, but my guess will be Dennis. He's the IGL, so...
Well, can I ask then about Dennis's IGL calling style? Sorry, Blair, I'm just desperate to ask this because it feels like maybe you're also having an impact on the decision-making, Jacob.
If he's dead and I'm alive, then I usually take the charge, I guess. But mostly it's him. In the start of the round, it's him. But yeah, sometimes I come with input.
My question would be, Jacob, ever since you've joined this team, you guys haven't played too many games, or like, I think like some 12 or 14 maps games so far. How much has changed? Like, obviously there would have been a big upheaval, you coming into this lineup, there was swapped around a lot of roles and whatnot. Has it kind of settled down right now, or are you guys still in a kind of a process of transition at the moment?
We're definitely still in the process. You know, you have to redo everything when a new player joins, usually, so it will take some time, and it's not done in like a month. Usually it's like a 6-month thing, people say, so I still think that there is still a lot of things to do and to fix and learn from.
All right.
Vu.
Excuse me. As a team, do you see this team like what is it missing to push you guys further to move into tier 2, tier 1 CS in your opinion?
What we're missing is definitely experience. People on this team, I think it's only me and Dennis that has international experience on like a high level. So we're definitely lacking experience. And I think playing tournaments like this is really good for the team because the people get to gain experience, and that's what we miss.
Well, thank you so much, Jake, and we'll be seeing you playing in the winners match of Group A tomorrow. And congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you.
Well, nice to quickly catch up with Mr. Jacob, but right now we've got to go to a break because we've got one more best of 3 of the day. This is going to be an elimination match. Everything is on the line because we're going to be saying goodbye to Flo Scola or AGF at the end of the day. Don't go anywhere.